We have the latest in regards to Tesla news and what's going to happen this upcoming week for Tesla. The stock is going higher. Now, I have done my own estimate on Tesla's deliveries for Q2, which are going to come out next Sunday. And boy, is it exciting, and it could send Tesla stock up to the next level. So I hope you guys find some value out of this video. Let's just get straight into it with what's happening over this weekend with Tesla. It's confirmed another Cybertruck is heading from Singapore to New Zealand, likely for the last rounds of testing, and this is another positive sign that maybe we get an expected production date shortly for the Cybertruck. Markets are now expecting sometime in Q3 to start production. Elon himself has kind of precautioned investors. It would likely be towards the end of the year, closer to Q4. The sooner, the better for the Cybertruck. Not to mention 1.5 million pre-orders, but I think it's safe to say the Cybertruck is the best electric truck out there. As far as the specs, there's really no comparison, and the overall look is going to drive a lot of attention and a lot of traffic to Tesla's website. So this is indeed another positive development over this weekend in regards to the Cybertruck. Tesla insurance registration numbers out of China from June 1st through June 18th sits at about 40,600 vehicles. Last week alone, Tesla delivered 14,500 estimated units to China alone. This obviously looks good heading into July 2nd, and it seems like we've seen a pretty strong month of June so far coming out of China. The Motley Fool also had some pretty encouraging things to say in regards to Tesla deliveries. This article right here, posted just about 12 hours ago, the Motley Fool also had some encouraging things to say about Tesla, saying, quote, "Think Tesla is slowing down? This chart says otherwise." And they go on to reference Tesla's delivery numbers and the fact that they continue to look better and better, and that this next July 2nd reading is likely to also be expectations. Going over some of the comparables here, like the Model Y has 99% more vehicle registrations than last year for this same time period. Goes on to say that you're also getting 52% on a year-over-year gain. So quarter over quarter is killing it. A year-over-year, killing it. They go on to suggest that maybe Tesla's stock, being where it is, could see a lot more upside if we do beat on those estimated deliveries. And that's going to be the thing, the only thing, that Tesla investors, bulls and bears, are focusing on for this week, and that is the reason why I think Tesla is going higher this week. Now, as I have reported previously, if you think about the broad markets and you think about this rally that you have seen in Meta and Google and Amazon and Apple and Microsoft and Nvidia, all of these aggressive rallies, what do you think the short loss is so far in 2023? Around $120 billion is the answer. What if I told you that over 10% of that loss is just in Tesla stock? Not to mention the other almost 20,000 stocks that are listed out there. 10% in Tesla alone. Heading into a major catalyst that has the chances to upset expectations and to beat to the upside. If I told you that, what do you think shorts are going to do heading into that catalyst? At the bare minimum, it makes sense to reduce your short exposure, considering shorts have taken massive losses already. That's the only logical thing to do on a risk to reward basis. Now, Tesla stock also has some technical positives going for it, including the golden cross that I previously covered, in which a golden cross is where a smaller moving average or shorter duration moving average crosses above a longer term moving average. This can be a 5-day to a 10-day. It could be literally any example you want it to be. But Tesla just had the best golden cross of all. When the 50-day moving average crosses above the 200-day moving average. About 90% of the time when this happens, stocks go higher afterwards. Usually once you get a golden cross, you don't get a sell-off. That's not how these things tend to work. Not to mention some of the option activity recently with hedge funds and institutions would also suggest that Tesla has far to go with an upside rally. A lot of the options that we have seen every single day have been very bullish, but they've been far out the money. Usually hedge funds and institutions, they don't buy far out the money options, but when they do, they don't buy the size that they are with Tesla. The size of these out the money options are hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars for every trade. That typically does not happen. That's pretty abnormal to see. Usually you get a lot of close to the money calls or close to the money puts. You don't tend to see a lot of far out the money options being purchased in mass quantity. For the past week, you have seen 7,664 institutional and hedge fund options. These are categorized as interesting flow sentiments. They can be sweeps, they can be block trades. They could be interesting in their own regards. These are not retail orders. These are only large orders from hedge funds and institutions. I want to point that out. You have seen $2.62 billion purchased in the last week, with a positive order value of 69%. That is very good after seeing a rally this size in Tesla, adding over $200 billion to Tesla's market cap. This is incredible. And usually when you're about to see a sharp drop in a stock, you usually tend to get hedge funds and institutions placing bearish bets more than they're placing bullish bets. That did not happen last week. Again, another factor that I like to look at that tends to be pretty reliable in projecting out the next week, 2, 3, or 4 weeks into the future. And again, short positions currently sit at $23.8 billion. This is up 47% in the last 3 months. This is also up in the last 6 months, 156.25%. It's up from $9.29 billion 6 months ago to $23.8 billion. There's some huge losses here. And you never want to bet on Tesla. I learned my lesson years ago. You don't bet against Tesla heading into events and catalyst. You just don't. If you're short, if you're overexposed short, you reduce short exposure. You buy a little bit of long hedges. That's what I expect to see in this upcoming week. The RSI also supports my theory that Tesla rallies this week. And that is because the RSI went from about 90 to where it's currently at 67.61. At one point last week, Tesla was the most technically overbought stock in the whole entire NASDAQ. That tends to be a sign that maybe a downside draft is coming. Maybe that stock is going to go down. You've seen that happen. Really, you've seen sideways trading action. And you've held a lot of support at $250 per share. Well, the RSI coming down gives the stock room to break out to new highs of this cycle without that pressure, that overbought pressure on the stock. So this was a very healthy reset heading into this next week. Now, ultimately, by this Friday, I think it's likely that Tesla rallies to in between $290 and $300 per share. I think $300 per share is going to be a big psychological level of resistance. It's going to be a level in which people feel maybe a little bit more comfortable adding to some downside hedging as well. Those big psychological levels tend to be important. Same way $250 has served as strong support. There's nothing significant, technically speaking, at $250 per share. It's all psychological. $300 on an upside move, it's going to be psychological resistance. Now, essentially this week, I'm saying Tesla could rally about 17%. That would be Tesla stock going from where it is now to $300 per share. Almost 16.5% if you want to get technical. $290 per share would be a rally of 13%. These numbers are not unrealistic by any means. You could rally above 300. If the estimates start to go up in this week for those delivery numbers for July 2nd, you'll probably go higher than 300. Now, ultimately, after July 2nd, starting the following week, is when Tesla stock could rally to 350 or higher, depending on how those delivery numbers come out. And based off of my estimates, that's actually the most likely scenario for Tesla. So what I like to do when I try to estimate Tesla's delivery numbers is basically look at current data and information we're getting out of China. Keep in mind, you get a lot of Tesla data out of China. You don't get much out of Europe or America. So how you have to try to estimate the US and Europe deliveries is by essentially discounting based off of current numbers you're seeing in China, based off of the total revenue and delivery numbers you've seen prior. Sounds complicated. It's not. Let me break it down a little bit further for you. So in 2022, you essentially seen almost 50% of Tesla's revenue and deliveries coming from America. You've seen almost 30% of Tesla's deliveries and revenue coming from China in 2022. So you basically look at the current data, you come to an estimate off of China because those are the most, I guess, realistic estimates that we can forecast as of right now, and add the difference between the US 50% and China's roughly 30%, that'd be 20%. So you add about 20% to America, and you try to come to a logical conclusion of Europe based off of what I like to do the last quarter, because Europe doesn't tend to be as volatile as America and China because their numbers are smaller. So the numbers that I have come up with is pretty straightforward. So what you've seen again from June 1st through June 18th in China is almost 41,000 vehicle registrations. Now this is for the month of June. What you've seen in the month of May was about 77,000 expected deliveries in China. So what I basically did is say, hey, May was probably the best month in China at 77,000 vehicles. I'm going to estimate that Tesla delivered 50,000 vehicles in April and 50,000 vehicles in June, which looks to be pretty accurate toward, 41,000 vehicles as of June 18th. I'm sure they get to 50,000, right? Probably pretty accurate. Now, as you can see from the calculator, that's going to be 177,000 deliveries. Now, if I add 20% to that, that's going to put you at about 212,000 potential deliveries in the US for Q2. You add these two numbers together, you're at 389,400 potential deliveries from the US and China combined for Q2. Now wait, Europe. Now Tesla sold 94,696 vehicles in Europe in Q1 of 2023. Now, if you look at the historical performance of Tesla, besides 2022, Q2 tends to be the second best quarter out of the year. Besides 2022, and back here in, what year was it? 2017, you tend to get Q1 being the worst quarter, Q2 the next best, Q3 the next best, and Q4 being the best. Almost every single year, besides 2022. Well, with that logic in mind, Tesla likely delivered more than 94,000 vehicles, but the growth isn't as good usually in Europe. But I think it's a very reasonable conclusion that Tesla probably delivered around 100,000 vehicles in Europe for Q1 2023. That would only be an increase of 5% quarter over quarter. This is probably low. It should probably be a higher estimate. But that's what I'm going to use because I want to stay a little bit more conservative, right? I don't want to be, overly optimistic here. But if you add 100,000 here, you're at 489,000 deliveries. Tesla's max capacity to essentially build vehicles and deliver them right now is around 500,000 vehicles a year, or a quarter, around 2 million vehicles a year. That's what Elon kind of said at the last earnings report. High-end guidance was 2 million vehicles for 2023. Low-end guidance was around 1.8 million vehicles. So this would be Tesla basically at max capacity, or close to max capacity, for Q2. But wait, what you seen on the last earnings report was Tesla actually produced around 440,000 vehicles, and they only sold 422,000 vehicles. So there's a gap there of roughly 22,000 vehicles that were built but not delivered. So that can be a variable here. That could essentially say, hey, Tesla had a little bit more vehicles that they could actually sell without being at max capacity. Hopefully that makes some sense to you. And it could make these numbers even higher. But I'm not going to factor that into this calculation. So based off of what I'm saying here, Tesla, now discount this if you want to, Tesla could deliver in between 470,000 vehicles and 490,000 vehicles, or 500,000 vehicles. If you want to add a little bit to it, I know some of the Europe calculations were pretty low. So what's the estimate currently? Around 445,000 deliveries. If Tesla comes in with these numbers that I'm expecting, the stock is ripping higher from here. And usually, let me just point this out here in this video. Usually hedge funds and institutions, they get the data before we do. They know people that know people that know people. And it wouldn't surprise me if Tesla stock does rally aggressively this week because someone got leaked the delivery numbers. You tend to see that happen quite a bit with news catalysts and other things out in the markets. So be on the lookout for that. I will definitely keep you up to date on all of this information. Ladies and gentlemen, let me know what your expected Tesla delivery numbers are. How high do you think Tesla stock can go this week? And what are the potential, negatives? We've seen some weird things happen over this weekend. It looks like Russia was almost conquered and then they turned around. Could have been a black swan event. Looks like that was avoided. If the markets don't take that as negative, maybe you get a little bit more profit selling, but that doesn't necessarily mean Tesla has to fall alongside the broad markets. I think these overweighing factors of the short positions, hedge fund under allocations, while they're actually buying a lot of calls that are deep out the money, puts Tesla in a really good position for this week. So let me know what your opinions are on all of these things. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel on your way out, especially if you made it to the end of this video. Nonetheless, you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.